You good? You good?
I'm not entirely good because I thought I would be recording this episode under happier circumstances. It's not a disaster.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not a disaster.
It's not a disaster, but it's definitely, I don't want to say a low note, it's a lull.
It is the
I love how nobody fucking knows yet.
no.
Well, I'm sure if you're clicking on this, you know the title.
It's the second worst Game of Thrones season finale ever, I would say. But the worst is head, shoulders, knees, and toes, an entire extra body worse than
I'm sure I just spat all
or
over
it's,
you.
it's a very distant second.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to figure
The
out.
only other one that would be like in contention was Seven, but like that only kind of sucks in hindsight.
Season 5, the one where John dies,
Yes,
that one was like okay.
but
I feel like the build up to that, like having the
yeah,
storming of uh
fair enough. But that one ends as an ending, whereas this just ends.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we're talking about season 2 of Hot
of
D.
Hot D,
Hot D, the hottest of
more
Ds.
like lukewarm
This,
ending.
you know
Ending.
what? This D is not Olympic level
No,
Paul Walter D.
it's not.
This is the guy who did
This
clear that bar and got gold.
this is hey baby,
Huh?
this is. I thought that door was opening behind us.
Uh-uh.
This is hey baby. We did it like 3 times yesterday, and I'm trying my best.
Flesh, the spirit is like, but the flesh
It
is
seems spongy and
yeah. Yeah. I mean, all right. So the crazy thing about this season is like if you take all the individual parts, it's strong, right? Like
yes,
if you isolate every episode,
including
you
the final episode.
including the final episode,
Yeah,
you're like these are all like
lots of great,
eight, nines out of tens, right?
lots of great character moments, lots of great atmosphere to allude to the
Yes,
previous episode.
absolutely. But
Something is amiss.
something's amiss, and
Yeah,
that amiss is finality.
action,
Act. Yeah, I mean, we don't get me wrong,
some good action.
we got some good action.
Yeah,
Funny enough, your wedding day was like probably
the
the
most.
best episode, like the most
Which
consequential
which
episode.
one was it again?
It
Was that
was
was it
the Battle of Roof's Nest,
where Aegon gets
where
Aegon gets
he gets crispy
Aemond?
fried.
Yeah, yeah.
He gets game.
Aegon gets Aemond.
He does. Um, it's it's shocking to me how you can have all these like top tier episodes and just still come out at the end feeling so unsatisfied,
What is the opposite of something greater than the sum of its parts? It
which
is
is insane,
it is a
right?
sum that is lesser than the sum of its parts.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
And
But I want to preface, there's like the internet, and mainly men on the internet, are like big mad at this whole thing and they're treating it like it's some travesty towards television. I'll be like, no, no, it's not. But yet I am still disappointed.
I think the reason why I am more inclined to be let down by this finale
Yeah.
is the fact that we know we're not watching this shit
Next year.
pan out until at least 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's a
And
factor.
and that's a huge
That's a
factor. I
factor.
mean,
Right.
god damn, like
And we didn't get it last year.
we didn't get it last year.
Yeah.
So like you kind of feel like you've been craving this like dragon battle action.
Yes.
And then also it doesn't help that they kind of did spoil us a bit by giving us a like preview of what that is going to look like,
Right.
right? With that big battle at the end of episode 4.
Yeah.
Like it's so strange.
It
Like
is.
it feels like I'm dunking on it. And
No.
I am but I'm not, but I
Right.
am, but I'm not.
So are we reviewing the episode or are we reviewing the
So let's
season?
review this season
All right. Perfect.
because I think it's important to kind of know like pinpoint like what is going on in the world of Hot D.
Yeah.
Last we left off, Rhaenyra was being blamed for the shenanigans that happened
To
to
Prince
Jaehaerys.
Jaehaerys
Uh, that kind of then
or
started
near the Cruel.
Rhaenyra the Cruel.
Yeah.
It led to Aegon kind of like spiraling.
Yeah, he got some points. Well, he got some points in the polls, but then,
Yeah,
but then I think he justifiably spirals. Where
yeah. Oh, for sure.
I think we talked about in the last episode that I was pro killing the rat catchers. That also seems like a fucking eternity ago.
I mean,
Yeah,
that was 2 weeks before you won.
but in the events of the show, that just seems like that event and those and that fallout seems like so much shit happened afterwards. They're like, oh man, I feel like they killed that kid like
Forever
5 years
ago.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, episode three just starts to deal with kind of like how the houses are being pitted against each other.
Hmm.
We have that smash cut after these two kids are arguing with each other.
I love that.
That's a great visual like representation of like you're following the royals. So like whenever there's like or squabbles happening
Yes.
between like the lower houses, like you just like, well, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like you
But
just see the
but
aftermath.
but
Like
but you get like enough to kind of know what's going on. And the thing that I love about this, okay, I forget which house is which. There's Bracken and Blackwood.
so blacks back to blacks.
So okay, but is Blackwood the one in black or is Bracken the one in black? Do you like I know the black's black, the one's wearing black. What are the
No,
ones?
no, no. The Blackwoods back the blacks.
Ah, okay, okay,
The
okay.
Breckons back
The
the greens.
greens.
Yeah.
All right. You when you get to the cut of like the battle that happened between them,
Hmm.
and you see just like corpses in the mud, like they're so covered in like blood and
It
mud.
doesn't fucking matter who's who, right?
But it actually is the one that we see is actually one of the ones wearing the yellow, but they're
Yeah.
just so covered in like black.
He's
Like
the one who draws his sword
yeah,
at the beginning of that conflict.
and that's the theme that's being communicated, that it doesn't matter who this was. Like this is just like violence spinning into violence, right?
Yeah.
Oopsies leading to bigger oopsies that we cannot take back.
I don't know, what did we say the show was?
Oopsie, the
Oopsies, the series.
yeah, yeah,
Hot oopsies.
yeah.
Um that's that episode. It's kind of starting to show this is where fucking Damon starts his vision quest at Harrenhal, which I will agree. It feels like a low point. It's not. I don't think it's as boring as
No,
people are making it out to be.
I agree with you.
Um, I find it effective to show his character because okay, the alternative is to be like, hey, I'm leaving. Oh, surprise, I'm back,
Yes,
right? And that feels so disingenuous to like Damon's
what he
character.
needs to
Like
do.
that is not who he is.
Right. I think the now jumping to the finale slightly, I think what makes it more boring in hindsight is the fact that we see a character change, but we don't see like tangible action of him doing something actually like useful for the cause. Like yes, he gets the army, but we don't see like the payoff of that
Yeah.
in this season. And I think that's what makes it frustrating. But yes,
Yeah.
season 4 is when we start the Damon Mushroom Dream Quest.
I love those scenes, by the way, especially in like the first two episodes where like he starts to have these visions.
Yeah.
Um, like it feels appropriately spooky.
Yep. You
And
got the young
it's
Rhaenyra one with
yeah, I
her
think
head fall.
that's the second time, the second vision he has is the Rhaenyra one,
Yeah,
because the first one is he sees himself, but it's like also Aemond, and it's showing like these two are basically
the same.
the same
Yeah,
character, right?
yeah.
It's just one eventually kind of sees the error of his ways,
Right.
right? Um,
So far.
so far,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, we gotta
We
see
got
what
we
we
got a
have
ways to
so
go.
far as like this goes. Um, I just think it's also kind of it's really funny that like as it goes on, even he starts to lose patience with this shit,
Hmm.
and I feel like you're kind of watching, you're like, yeah, me too, bud.
Yeah. There's some definite Lady Macbeth vibes, um, that make it fun to see him get tortured into insanity, but then also the fact that it's like a man who's being tortured into insanity by a woman because it just like Like I wouldn't say that Damon necessarily oozes masculinity, but like he's a masculine enough on some
He's
level.
got toxic
Yeah,
masculinity.
and the fact that he's emasculated by a bastard girl, right,
Yeah.
in this castle that he can't control, um, makes for a compelling, makes for a compelling crucible that he has to get through. So I liked the Damon stuff. I was just waiting for more payoff. But I don't know when's appropriate to talk about it, but like I think the closest thing we got to payoff is the scene with Lord Tully uh,
Lord Tully.
at the end for dispensing justice, and I that may have been one of my favorite parts of the season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's just him eating his own fucking words,
yeah,
and it's kind of amazing.
he has to submit.
It,
He learns that he has to submit
this
to
is
win.
him. This is like the like definition of someone getting humbled,
Yeah,
like IRL.
yeah.
It's kind of amazing. Um, so we'll kind of get to that in a second, because the following episode, like we said, is it's a hugely consequential episode for both sides.
So is that episode five is Rook's Rest?
Episode four is Rook's Rest.
Okay.
Episode three is Running Mill. So this is Thanos' wedding night.
Yep.
We were sitting there at your wedding, watching you guys dance.
Yeah.
One of your first dances, and then I get a notification, hey, 10 out of 10 from IGN. I was like, excuse me, what the
Nice.
fuck is happening
Yeah.
tonight?
Nice.
And all of us were like, we want to watch the shit at like 1 in the morning tonight?
You gotta.
No. No, we
Oh.
waited until the next day.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, it's weird. Um, this is this episode kind of shows us a couple of things. It shows us that what's Allison's brother's name? I keep on forgetting.
Gawain.
Gawain.
Yeah.
Um,
Of the Green Knight Bronze.
he's such a shit.
I love
Like I
Gawain.
like him, but it's also like very clear that like he has zero real quote unquote real world experience when it comes to like battle. And it as much as I hate it,
Yeah.
it does show that Cole, as much of a shitty ass person
Person
he
he
is,
is. Right.
he is at least battle smart,
Yeah.
right?
That's true.
Like so like it the fact that they're able to get the upper hand on Melis and Reina,
Right.
right? Like setting up this trap.
Elise
Um,
and Rhaenys.
not Melis and Rhaenys.
Yes.
Did I say Reina? I said
Yeah.
Reina. Yeah,
Not a real fan.
not a real fan. It's to me, I think it kind of does not only say redeems his character, but it makes you feel like, okay, this is why this character is still around.
Right.
Like, why not just like write him off or whatever? He is somewhat formidable, and I also think he shows us like what it is to be like a foot soldier at the
Yeah.
end of the day, right? Like, yes, he's the head of the King's Guard, he's the hand of the king, quote unquote.
Hmm.
But like, end of the day, like when you've got dragons, you're a fucking grunt.
I think that's the thing. And then that shows up later in the finale, right? He has this realization. But I
Hmm.
think part of what you said is getting to witness his competence, but then having like all the competence in the world be nothing compared to like emotional people and their nuclear weapon pets,
Hmm.
right? Just kind of shows how I think one of the themes that I read in the Dance of the Dragons is you have like this buildup of so much power that eventually the power just becomes more chaotic and more potent than the people who wield it. Where
Hmm.
there's nothing that you can really like do to contain this powder keg. Eventually it just becomes so big where even though like you could make rationales for every actor on the side, like the whole thing is just inevitably gonna go off.
Yeah,
Right.
and I mean, you're yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it. I don't think this show has ever been subtle on its depiction of like dragons basically being your nukes.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very appropriate like read on that.
And that's what in that episode, like I can justify both Aemond and Aegon's actions there.
Yeah.
Because like yes, it makes sense for a bigger dragon guy to be the one that's hiding to like fuck shit up. But then also like you're the king, like your brother's been making power moves on you in the council, right? Like
Hmm.
you also need to take an opportunity to like, especially if you're named after the conqueror, like you need to take the opportunity to be able to like go in there and like settle shit yourself. So I get why all the characters in that battle did why they did, and that's why it's
Hmm.
so compelling to me. Even though Aegon gets got, and by God I mean
Yeah,
paralyzed by burns
and undick,
and undick,
undick.
undick.
The thing that I find kind of interesting though about that scene is I kind of wish they had done Maylisa's death a little different
Hmm.
because it does the like the movie like trope of like something coming out of nowhere
Yeah.
where I just Vagar is so big.
Yeah.
I'm
Hearts are hard to hide.
I'm sorry she's not hiding.
Yeah.
And even if she is hiding, like that can't be a she takes off quickly and does it,
Right.
right? Because like the way it's staged is Rhaenys and Meleys go back.
Hmm.
They do one pass over the castle, and then Vagar swoops in from below.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the timing on that just does not
Makes
make
me nervous.
sense. The like visually, it just does not seem logical how this big dragon would come up from under
Well, Game of
this
Thrones
cliff.
does like to play fast and loose with the logic of moving logistics.
I guess, but
Yeah.
like even that first scene where we see Vagar
Yeah.
like fly into battle, she is not a fast girl. And
No.
I think that is like a canonically proven thing where like she's strong and she's
I
massive.
think I remember characters saying that their dragons are quicker than Vagar, and that's yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And so that's why I'm like I kind of wish we had gotten a little different interpretation of that.
Mm,
Which granted the show does a lot with like interpreting the events of the book and the
right,
events of, what we're actually seeing.
right.
That to me I think feels a little strange.
Yeah,
And speaking of interpretations of things, I do have one other thing that I want to talk about a little bit later when it comes to Damon.
yeah.
But anyway, um, the funny thing is, Katie turns to me at the end of this episode. She goes, "Wait, holy shit, is fucking Aegon dead?" And I'm like,
Not yet.
"Yeah." um, I don't know what the interpretation is for you at the end of that episode where Aemon is like standing over him.
uh,
Is his intention to kill him right then and there? I feel like if your king just got burned by a dragon and he's dead because of a stab wound,
right.
I'm like, I don't think,
People would people would look either way.
yeah, I don't know.
I think so I think when you see that scene you have to like look back at the scene where Aemon kills I always have to think about which brother's which, Lucerys in season one.
Hmm.
Because that one is clearly more of a mistake. But I always read that scene as it not being 100% of a mistake. That like part of Aemon really wanted to just like go chomp right there and like kill his nephew. Right.
Hmm.
I think now you're saying
Brother.
nephew in season one. In season one when he kills
Oh, gotcha,
Lucerys. When he
gotcha,
kills
gotcha,
Lucerys.
gotcha, gotcha.
I think that one was like 80% mistake, 20% like on purpose.
Yeah.
I think now I read the one in season two with, you know, purposefully burning Aemon.
Oh, that's a
Aegon.
thousand. There's no way that's not on
Yes.
purpose, right?
Still like part of him was like, I can't I can't do this. I don't want to do this, but I like mostly want to do it. And I think it's
You mean
documented.
when he makes Vagar burn, or when he goes down to potentially finish off the job?
Well, I think the entire action of like attacking and then potentially like killing his brother, I read him as mostly wanting to do it and now being pushed to the point of seeing his brother's incompetence where he's like more conscientiously willing to take the step, but still somewhat human enough where like once he sees what he's done, and I can't remember, I mean it's been forever since I saw the episode, but I feel like you do see some level of surprise on his face, like after like ordering the Dracarys. I would need to go back and see, but still not being at the point where he can like fully like finish the job right then and
Yeah,
there.
I do feel
Yeah,
like there wasn't like to me at least, I feel like there were literally no hesitation to him
Dracarys thing.
Dracarsing in,
Yeah,
Aegon. But I do feel like there was a bit of hesitation. More of like well, let's see what I did.
yeah,
Do I like am I in the clear or is this going to potentially come back and bite me in the ass if he's like not dead?
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I don't necessarily think he would have, stabbed him with
Right.
the dagger. I do think it's really funny in the next episode that Allison immediately notices that he's got what's the dagger?
Oh, well
Cat's
later
claw?
on it's called the cat's paw dagger.
Cat's claw.
Yeah,
Um, but she like pins that right away,
yeah,
and like that's when like her suspicions are essentially
or fully
confirmed.
peaked.
Like she knows that he's got these aspirations of the throne.
Yeah,
I think that is the immediate ticket. She goes, "Oh shit."
but we have to remember like the choice that to attack his brother there is still one that's kind of on impulse because like Aegon wasn't supposed to be there, right?
No,
So any decision making he's making is
it's on the fly.
on the fly and emotional,
Yeah,
right? So there's room for a lot of conflicting emotions
yeah.
to be in there.
It's definitely, I mean, for sure, anger. He's like, because he does kind of look at him like, "What the fuck are you
What are you doing
doing
here?
here?"
Yeah,
Like, and
ruin the
and you could
plan.
interpret that as like, A, you're an idiot for being here and putting yourself in danger, or B, like you're stealing my thunder.
Well, but either way, like if the plan goes according to plan, like Aegon is still healthy and king,
Yeah. Well, that's
right?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's the point,
yeah,
right? So like it's an undermining of like his plan, which I guess is also on them for not telling him what the plan is,
yeah,
which
absolutely,
is what leads Aegon to make that decision in that
absolutely.
episode.
Yeah,
Dude, I gotta say before we move on, that scene of Dragonfire
it's
like
cool.
nuzzling up to Aegon.
Yeah.
It's such like puppy dog behavior, and I fucking hate them for doing this.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
you're like these dumbass dragons, like yeah, they're dangerous, but like they do love
yeah. They're
their
characters.
riders,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And then like they're all gonna fucking die. And
Yeah.
it fucking sucks so bad.
Yeah, it's gonna be very sad. I'm gonna be
Um,
sad when Cyrex dies. I was sad. I was sad when Meleese died.
dude, it was so fucking sad.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Katie, that's why Katie's like, I need to look this shit up
Preview.
to like get myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, he becomes regent, which I
Mm,
think is interesting. The only real consequential thing in this episode is A, they fire Allison,
right.
which is hilarious.
Did they fire Otto this episode as well?
They fire Otto.
That
No, they
exchange,
fired Otto the previous episode
because Aegon fires
because
Otto.
Aegon fires
Yeah,
Otto
yeah.
and they that was a couple episodes ago actually.
Aemon brings Otto back.
Aemon wants to bring Otto back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know how that's gonna pan out.
Because he's in a cell somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is strange because
yeah.
I don't think that's in the book, right?
I don't think so. I haven't read
We'll
it.
we'll, we'll touch
Yeah.
a bit on that a bit. Um, this is kind of where Damon has his first like big mistake at Harrenhal,
Hmm.
where he sends one of the lower houses to essentially sack the other lower house
Yeah.
after they had already essentially lost.
And they do a lot of second.
They do a lot of sacking,
Right.
and
And the River Lords are not
they are
happy.
not happy. The following episode is where Allison and Helena get just bullied by the small folk.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they're focusing on like these wartime tactics of like getting the common people who essentially do enough of your work.
Yeah, because you see, and I don't feel like it's just Game of Thrones that does this, but like in any war, you know, in any war movie or show, there's usually a blockade or siege somewhere. And like I think this season of House of the Dragon made you feel the effects of the siege and blockade more than
Yeah,
others because we're reminded multiple times in the season like food is
food is
short.
scarce,
Yeah,
right? And this is also where we start to see what is her name, the White Worm,
Massaria.
Missaria, where she's talking about we're starting to spread these rumors of like the Greens are having feasts every night, and
Yeah,
like they are also not, which is kind of
which is not which is I forgot the word.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I was waiting for you to finish it up.
I know.
But it's also because like you see scenes of things happening in the castle and like they've got fucking rats everywhere. Like their food is not glamorous either because
Yeah.
like
There's a scene where they're transporting lambs, but I think that's for the
it's
dragons.
mostly for the dragons,
Yeah.
right? That's a big point of contention too with the small folk.
Yeah.
I do think it's also kind of nice that we have a character like Hugh who does play a major role, going forward,
Right.
but it also does a really good job at setting us up with having like a closer point of view for the
It's a
small
small
folk,
folk.
right?
Right.
Like the trials and tribulations that these guys are going through. Like my kids are dying.
They're dying off
They're
screen.
they're dying off screen. Uh,
Worth waiting out.
absolutely. Uh, and it shows like the boiling point that they're getting to inside the walls,
Yeah.
right? This is the episode where she gets fucking shit canned,
Yeah.
Allison. Like in the last one, she gets pushback from Eamon, and this is
Yeah.
the one where she does get shit canned.
Yeah.
Episode 7 is where we start to get like what are they called? The seeds,
The dragon
the
seed.
dragon seed.
Yeah.
So we have like and her son with the big ass chin to
Yes.
be like we're going to
Jaceres. Yeah.
yep, we're gonna find more dragon
And
riders,
Jaceres is not happy.
which is kind of crazy to me because like it's his idea is to find more dragon riders
That are highborn.
that are highborn,
Yes.
but it's so short-sighted
Yeah.
to be like, no, we finally have someone who's going to help us, but fuck them because they're lowborn when you yourself are a fucking bastard.
Well, that's the thing. It
I know,
makes
I know I know it like it's probably a sore spot for him and makes him probably feel
yes. It brings
like
to light what he knows everybody is saying about him.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I do think it's nice to have a character like Sabela,
Yeah.
who's like
Bela's, I think, his betrothed.
his betrothed and
Reina is the
she's
one in the veil.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And she's basically like it doesn't fucking matter, like even just because these guys are here does not make you look more like you at the end of the day you got name,
Yeah.
which reflects her grandpappy essentially saying the same thing. Like at the end of the day,
They
blood
have the
doesn't really matter.
names.
It's name that
Yeah.
has the power.
Blood,
But
hair.
in this case, the
Yeah.
blood is what is going to help you.
Blood, hair color, pigmentation.
uh, um, I really like the ritualistic
Mode
kind
of
of
calling the dragons. Yeah.
that like just the way this whole thing kind of goes. Like you are, for lack of a better word, you are being sacrificed. It's just whether you're being sacrificed to this thing taking you as a pet
Yeah.
or sacrificed as in like this thing is going to fucking eat
Eat
you.
you. Right. Which, okay. So this brings me to a question I have for you. I think Rhaenyra and Team Black are definitely like framed as our protagonists.
There are good guys for lack of a better term.
But do you think the show has totally thrown the whole thing out of balance? Because from what I gather in the book, it is more because it's written from that historian's perspective, right? It is more ambiguous as to like who the bad side is, and and I think the book makes the argument that like well both are equally to blame.
Hmm.
Yes, Rhaenyra is our protagonist. Do you think the show takes too much of Team Black's side, or do you think it's playing its
I think for
mm,
the purposes of a TV show, you almost kind of have to have
yeah.
a side or the
Well,
other.
just like with original Game of Thrones, right? I think the show started out with like, the show doesn't need a main character, but eventually it got to the point where like you
Yeah,
needed
I
John and
mean
Danny.
you got
Yeah,
John and Danny,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean even to that point, like you did have good guys and bad guys,
yep,
right? It wasn't like Ned Stark was being shady in his
yeah,
doings. No, Ned Stark was a good guy. The Lannisters were absolutely the bad guys,
yes.
and that
There were shades of gray, but they were like there was your darker gray and there was your lighter gray.
yeah, but that
Yeah,
was more of like the side characters, I
yeah,
feel, right? Like where your shades of gray came in.
right,
You did have your absolutes, black and white, right?
yeah,
That carry throughout the entire series. Like, and at the end of the day, Jon Snow comes from the Starks,
Yeah.
right? Daenerys is, from the Targaryens, and she's off doing her side quest for
Right.
half of the series. And it's not until she joins Jon at the end that she, essentially joins the
The
who
good.
you are
Yeah.
the good guys, because Jon
Right.
is also a good guy.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think that for the purposes of like making a streamlined TV show, you kind of have to have
Yeah.
a good guy. And I mean, think of like a show like Dexter,
Right.
right? Like Dexter may not be the morally good guy, but he is our good guy. And
Yes.
even when the good guy cops are after him, they are our bad guys.
Well, then, I mean, even with that show, right? Like, Dexter, the show started out with like, I have no emotions. And then because like you have to make your protagonists
Likeable.
likable,
Yeah.
like every season, post season one, he's like, I'm wrestling with my emotions.
All right,
Yeah.
I know like that's kind of like a funny way to like look at a psychopath or a
Yeah.
sociopath or whatever. I think he says he's a sociopath, right?
Yeah.
That's his description of himself. Um, I think you kind of have to have that because when you have a show like Shameless, which I know I've shat on multiple times
Mm.
before, when you have people just constantly doing the worst things, I cannot get behind that for too long. I
Yeah.
get bored. So like that's why I do feel like if they do want to paint this as the blacks are in the right and the greens are not, it's fine. If they want to do something later on
Yeah.
where, Rhaenyra does start to kind of go, I don't want to get into spoilers,
Yeah.
but like if Rhaenyra does something bad,
Right.
then you can switch those like
You can
points
switch
of
it. Right.
views, and that's perfectly
And I think you could
fine.
definitely even do it within a season, right? Like
Just not in 2 episodes, like
2 episodes, like
it's like a
certain
certain
previous
certain
show.
a certain other
Yeah.
platinum haired baddie.
Yeah, I think it hurts my ears just to hear that. But like
What, the word baddie or
for
the
her, she
consequences of
she was she wasn't supposed to be
he
one.
was not,
Anyway,
no.
I think with Renee,
Madonna, that Disney money, that Star Wars.
yeah, I think if you need me to pick good or bad guy, yes, I'm still gonna choose Team Black for the good
Yeah.
guys. But I think even just watching here, part of it is just like Rhaenyra's relative incompetence. Part of it could be the fact that like a lot of her action is pretty idle throughout the season, which like you could then ask the question, well, is that a character flaw or is that like a show's structuring flaw? Um, but I also think in this greater conflict, even though Rhaenyra had the throne stolen from her, I think that there could have been points where could have said, this shit's gonna blow up like too much. Like maybe I should just like take the L and be like, you know what, Aegon, like you have it, right? Which I don't think most people feel that way, and I don't even think that I feel that way. But I like there's like Rhaenyra is now at this point where she's accumulated enough pieces where like she has the upper hand, right? She's Kamala the Donald, right? But I think there was like early on in the season there was points where she was looking more like 2024 Joe Biden, where
Yeah.
it's like maybe it would be better for the realm if you like
Just,
stepped aside.
yeah, flip side.
There's the whole prophecy thing, which I think we definitely have to get into before we finish
Oh,
this
for sure.
recording, that I have very mixed feelings about. And I think that's her main motivation for like staying. But maybe this is a good time to get into it. But there's many times where I call bullshit
Go on.
on her belief that like she has to be queen so she can like keep the realm together.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, if that's your true reason, if that's your true motivation, then like we could tell Aegon and Alicent and all these other people about like prophecy.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Do you want to talk the prophecy?
So let's get
Yeah.
into that, right? So like because the only other important things to come out is like we get three new dragon riders,
Yep.
and that's
And I
really
fucking hate Ulf.
all fucking sucks.
Yeah. Like
All
I think I
sucks.
think Ulf it goes past like intentionally unlikable character. I just I don't like what they're doing with Ulf.
Yeah.
He's too brash.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't like him.
yeah.
I don't like him.
They should kill.
Which,
Honestly, maybe her flaw is like once Ulf like did his second bullshit thing. I think they should have just killed Ulf. Like
yeah,
we're gonna find another one.
sure. But that's the extent. So yeah, the new episode
Yeah,
that just came out essentially deals with like where where we are
yeah,
leading into what is going to be our next like big conflict,
yeah.
right? Like
Many armies converging.
many armies converging. We have Tylan Lannister. He's out doing shenanigans, trying to recruit.
I can never remember which Lannister is which.
It's Tylan,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, Tylan.
right.
He's trying to meet
Pirates.
with the pirates,
Yep.
and the the thing that I think is interesting, which is why I'm confused, was because in the source it's Otto who strikes this deal,
Ah,
which is why at the end, when they were showing that it was Tylan's meeting with them, I was like, okay, fine,
yeah.
maybe you want to write off Otto or have him do something else.
Right.
But then he's in that cell at the end, and I'm like, wait, hold on.
Because most people are thinking, not most people, but a lot of people are like a lot of people are wondering where Otto is, and I think like the current number one leading theory is like the pirates have him in captive. But then also, if they did, then why haven't they be like, oh, by the way, like
We have your
we got your
guy.
boy.
We got your boy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they're going with
Uh,
that. So that's going to come into play very soon.
hmm
Laris convinces
Aegon.
Aegon
That,
that, hey man, listen, your brother is he's kind of losing his shit
yeah.
after he got bullied by Rhaenyra and her new dragon riders in the last episode.
Which are you reading this as like how how much is this Laris just being sneaky, and then how much of this is like Laris um being trying to be a good dude for once?
I don't know that he's trying to be good, dude. I
Yeah.
do think he's very. So here's the thing, and this is something that I think is also tracks from OG Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah.
Where you have your Master of Whispers
Right.
in what's his face, Littlefinger.
Well, it's Varys,
There's,
but
but
Laris I think is more the Littlefinger type.
yeah,
Yes.
um, yeah, but like Littlefinger does become that essentially for the Starks until he betrays them, and then he gets killed.
They both deal in whispers,
They both deal
but
with it, right?
Varys is always the official master
Yes,
whisper.
the
Yes.
official
Yep.
word, right? But he's only doing it because he knows it's good for him. I
Aemon,
think
he knows Aemon sees through his bullshit.
Aemon sees through his bullshit,
Yeah.
whereas Aegon does not.
Yeah.
And also, he also knows like if Aemon goes the way he's going, it's not going to end well.
I guess.
So I think it's a way for him to still down the line in like 5 or 6 different chess moves,
Yeah.
he still ends up with some standing as opposed to where this is leading him
I
right
mean,
now.
it's still a really gutsy move, right? Like
For
you're
sure.
aligning yourself with the burnt and crippled and dickless king
Yeah.
over the one with the biggest dragon.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I do think it's the idea that he knows that Rhaenyra has
Hmm.
means to counter this big ass
Yeah.
dragon, right?
Yeah.
Because I think Cyrax has been not Cyrax, Caraxes has been confirmed to be like the like fastest dragon,
Fast as
right?
Vermithor's biggest
The second
after,
biggest.
yeah,
So like
after
now they
Beta.
have those plus Cyrax, who I think they have said is formidable.
Yeah.
Like they are not in a good.
Yeah.
Like
No,
yes, you have the biggest nuke,
right.
but the other
It's just
team
one
has
nuke.
5,
Right.
right? So I think he's just a good person, a good like hedging your bets type of person,
Yeah.
and I think
What are you doing?
that's what his plan is.
Right.
Um, we get our final. We get Damon being told, "Buddy, you are graduating to profit,"
Yeah.
and I don't love this.
Yeah.
I don't love the way they do this.
So go on your tirade about why you don't. It doesn't have to be a tirade, but like go talk about why you don't.
All right. So like he touches the tree
Yeah.
and he gets a vision of essentially what's going to happen in Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
right? He sees the Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
He sees the Night Walkers, the
And
White Walkers. I'm sorry, the White Walkers, the Night. not the Night King. I don't think it's the
No,
Night
it's just
King.
a
I
White
think it's just a
Walker.
White Walker.
Yeah,
And then we see Danny from behind with her three dragons hatching,
yeah.
right? And it's like people are going, it's confirmation that she's the prince who was promised, and we're like, well, it's either her or John,
Or
and
Arya.
or well, Arya, I guess. Um, but I'm just sitting there going, at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter
Yeah,
because of
that's
the way they fucking handle Danny at the end of the it doesn't matter.
so. This is my. I've always had ever since the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy was brought up in season one. I always had mixed emotions about it. I think now is where I've shifted more into pessimism, whereas before was optimism, where I was like, you know how like the Clone Wars animated show like rehabilitates the prequels, where you're like, ah, I can stomach
Yeah,
this era.
sure.
I was like, maybe that's their project. Maybe they're trying to like make this as least stupid as
I
possible.
do I do think that's what they're trying
And
to
I
do.
was hoping that that would be the case. But even still, like Damon doesn't know what a fucking White Walker is, right? Like he's used to being around dragons all the time. I was like, ah, now there's this bitch with like three little ones, right? And it's also the fact that like because of how stupidly that was handled in season eight,
Hmm.
it's like the prince that was promised was useful for like a day,
Yeah.
and then the realm went to shit otherwise. But then also like we know nothing about AI Borg Bran and how he like runs things. So I don't even know what Game of Thrones as a franchise itself feels about the ending of Game of Thrones. Like I feel like they're trying to make statements about something that the audience obviously hated,
Hmm.
but they don't even know how to like rehabilitate or make a point out of like what happened. Like if you watched House of the Dragon and like you knew that Game of Thrones existed, you would be like, oh, that like
I look so
that
fucking cool.
White Walker battle is gonna be something fierce.
So here's the craziest
Yeah.
fucking thing. How familiar are you with a show called Full Metal Alchemist?
I mean, I know of it. I know
You
of
know of it.
yeah. And it was. I mean, it was sold to me originally as like anime Game of Thrones. Like it's very sad. Like lots of dying. Right.
Give me a second.
Do you have to deal with like assholes?
Sometimes, not
Gotcha.
often.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. So I bring up Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood
Yeah.
because they are vastly different shows,
Yeah. So I've
but
heard.
they are the same story. The thing is, Full Metal Alchemist came out while the story was being written.
Ah, I see.
And then it gets to Game of Thrones problem where it comes up,
Yeah.
and then they were like, well, let's go from
Let's
here and finish off.
let's try our best.
Let's try our best.
Yeah.
And then a few years passed, and they were like, well, okay, now that the series is actually done,
Yeah.
let's make
So
Brotherhood.
was it poo poo? Was there attempts poo poo? Like Game of Thrones was poo poo? Or
It's not regarded greatly,
gotcha. Yeah.
but on the other hand, Fullmetal Alchemist, I believe, might still be the highest rated anime
Ever.
of all time.
Well.
If not one, like maybe two after Attack on Titan, if it surpasses it.
Yeah.
So,
Attack on Titan was the Game of Thronesy looking one. Excuse me. Anyway, continue.
but anyway,
Yeah.
I this is like so fucking stupid. I would not hate if they were like,
No, I wouldn't
hey, let's
either.
let's do season
Let's
six,
do a
7, and 8
redo. I mean, it would be harder just because you got to do like,
actors and
yeah, all
dude,
that.
I don't care at this point, recast.
No, I don't care either. I agree. Maybe Robert Downey Jr. is setting a good precedent.
It's just
Doesn't
like
matter who plays who.
it's because there is, and don't get me wrong, I actually don't hate season 6 and 7.
Oh, I know. I just hate season eight.
I just, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe just go back and redo 8,
yeah. It just it where
extend it.
the correct answer where it
Give me the
goes off.
Snyder, yes, cut of season 8.
The correct answer where it goes off the rails, and there's no other correct answer, is when they go beyond the wall to get the White Walker.
And the dragon
That's where
dies.
shit's like, oh, I'm smelling some stupid, right? And then like
Yeah,
you really don't fully get the full effect of stupid.
I still can't believe
Yeah.
I still can't believe that was the
The
plan.
plan, yeah.
Let's go get a
Let's go
White
get a White
Walker.
Walker. Well, they can teleport. They
Dude.
can teleport, so possibilities are more, more abundant for them. Um, but anyway, but I just don't see. I think whereas before I was optimistic that maybe they'll rehabilitate this ending, now I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't see that happening because I don't think they know what they want to say about it,
Yeah,
other than the fact that like, look, White Walkers, look, Daenerys, right?
yeah.
So yeah,
That I mean, that is the most member berries I think I felt on this show,
yeah, yeah, for sure,
right? And I know that it's like with it being a prequel, I know you can kind of get away without it having member berries,
right?
right? Because you can kind of just do what you want, and maybe you can like go to the wall,
Yeah.
and you're like, yeah,
Look,
or
I mean, it does. The season opens with the Starks, right? So that,
exactly,
yeah,
right? So like you can have your nostalgia that way. I just don't think this is like what this show needs.
yeah,
I don't know. If they had just shown him and he had said, "I saw some weird creatures. I saw dragons gone for hundreds of years. I saw dragons
that's
come
the other.
back."
That's the other thing. Like, nowhere correct me if I'm wrong, but nowhere in the vision does it seem that he's clear. Like, oh, the dragons were like,
Exactly. Yeah.
gone
No,
though.
I don't.
Yeah,
Not that I can tell.
yeah.
So that's why I'm like,
Which would be more interesting
it would be more
because
interesting.
this conflict is what
This is
causes
this right
the
here.
dragons to be gonzo.
Exactly.
Like if Rhaenyra, even though I am Team Rhaenyra, if Rhaenyra had just said, you know what, like I'll do what my aunt cousin did. Like even though it's bullshit, I'll be like, you can have the throne. Uh, I'll back away. We would still have dragons.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right. And then I feel like that could you could paint that as like, oh, they are trying to put an end to this conflict
right.
because this could be consequential.
Yeah,
I don't know. And then like just to kind of to like wrap up, like the series or the season, sorry, ends with nothing more than like setup,
yeah,
which is strange for like a season of a TV series to
yes,
end this way. I feel like even though you're like a series can have like its own like beginning, middle, and your climax at the end.
yeah,
I still feel like a season needs to have its own flow. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong in my feeling towards this feels very Walking Dead season 2 to me, where they're
yeah.
just in the farm.
So I agree with you over the overall pace of the season. Um, I think if you end on season one, once you see Rhaenyra's face after her son gets munched, I think you end there and you feel like shit's about to like,
Go down.
yes. And with this whole season, I did buy into the logic of how both sides were trying to like put off war, but it is to me
One more than the other.
one more than the other. But still, like you had people on both sides that were exercising some sort of caution, right? Not everybody, but like Otto's cautioning more, right, than than Aegon wants to.
Hmm.
Um, I don't, other than like the skirmishes that have erupted, in like vassals, like I don't see how either side is that much more mad now than they were last season, where
Yeah,
suddenly like war seems more inevitable now
yeah,
than it did before.
yeah, for sure.
This is my first question. My second question for you is because you're a man who's got his ear to the ground.
Sure.
You hear the rumblings. I've heard that like this was supposed to be a 10 episode season, but like writer strike happened. I've heard David Zaslav happened. Is there a credible explanation as to back up the theory that like this was not how the season was initially supposed to end, but then external factors.
So I have heard that this was supposed to be 10 episodes,
Yeah,
but the only reason why I don't think the strike is to blame is because they were exempt from it
yeah,
because they use a different union because it's mostly European production.
Yeah.
Um, it shouldn't have impacted. Now, I believe that Zaslav had something to do with it. I don't fucking doubt it.
But then
That
what?
man's the fucking devil.
Yeah.
Um, I honestly I have no idea.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was we need to meet this deadline, and if we want to continue, we're not gonna make our deadline.
Yeah.
Um, I could believe that.
Because that is the thing. So I've heard
It feels like you're stopping at the end of that.
that I've heard other people say that now that this is out of the way, everything should just be bangers upon bangers upon bangers, which it very well could be. But I feel like I've heard that with enough media before. It's like, no, no, just make it through this season, and like next season we're gonna deliver. And like
Hmm.
Game of Thrones, I think is prime offender with like season 8. Like we'll make it through this episode, but then the next one, like
I will say, at least for me, season one and the individual quality of every episode,
Mhm.
minus prophecy,
Yeah.
earned enough goodwill that like I'm not like on the ledge, right?
No, I'm optimistic, but I'm just very curious as to. 'Cause I don't think our writers' room by itself comes up with this
This
ending.
episode.
And then I also do wonder about just like what a budget for this many battles and this many battles involving dragons would entail in terms of whether the story is just even too big a spectacle to tell for
Hmm.
HBO. Right. I'm curious. I mean, I'm wondering how much they can afford to do like all the subsequent battles and like dragon shit that needs to happen.
Hmm.
Um, but yes, the very long story short is I feel like something outside the writers' room had to make the season end this way, but I have no idea what. I have no idea what it was.
Yeah, I don't know. It's confusing. It's a little disheartening because you want some sort of closure.
Yeah.
It does end kind of like feeling grand because you have like the visuals of all the armies like
Yes.
converging.
Yeah.
So like there's that,
Yeah.
but I also feel like I don't know,
It's a very
maybe
competently done blue balling. Like
yeah,
it is a blue balling, but if you were going to blue ball me, you did it. You did it well.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It could also be the fact that like Warner Brothers was I think in the process of like transitioning from like one ownership to the other.
Yeah.
I think it was when they were merging with Discovery. So
Yeah.
like that
That happened
that
in between.
could and
Right.
maybe like the budget, they were like, hey, listen, we had given you enough for this, but now we have to give you this. And you're like, what can you do with this? You're like, oh well, we can't do the big final battles at
Yeah.
the end, so let's save that for the next season. I do think it's smart. I think to kind of wrap up, I think it's smart that they're saying we are giving us 4 seasons. I do feel like that's fair.
Yes.
Um, if you look at the time period that
Is it four
this
seasons max, or is it four? I know they for sure have at least 4 seasons.
they are ending with season four.
That's a good thing.
Season four is
Yeah.
their ending. I think with them knowing that that is their end goal, they can then pace the other episodes coming up a little bit better.
Yeah.
But then like I'm saying, like if you look at the content of the book and the amount of time that this conflict really has left,
Yeah.
like I think we're at like IRL time like 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's only so much you can do without it making feel like you're dragging. And
Right.
like, I mean, I'm also not expecting to show us like full battles every single episode.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful. I'm hoping that, you know, they can they can get what they want.
Correct. Correct.
I don't know. It really did feel like it was leading somewhere. Like every episode was so strong, and then it just like ends. And I'm like, where's the end?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. But I'm glad that we're not the only ones that feel like this. I feel like the internet collectively.
I think the internet is like over. reacting about it though,
They are.
and they always will.
They always will.
Yeah,
It's a silent, not a silent, but a loud minority type of thing. The people who are being like full on assholes about it.
yeah.
I do think of the two big summer shows that I watched. I think The Voice had a more satisfying season,
Finale.
just season overall.
Yeah,
Um, because it does feel like where it ends, like, oh, this is a logical conclusion to the events of this season.
right.
Um, and next season is going to be their last. So
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah,
this tracks.
this feels like your good guys are at this point. Now they need to get to this point.
Yeah,
So I'm very excited for that. So we'll be back with hopefully more hot D in 2 years.
yeah. Dunk
But
an egg next year probably.
Dunkin' Egg
Yeah,
is coming out next year. Um, I apparently there was a leak saying that um, there's two more planned spin-off shows for Game of Thrones.
planned and confirmed.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but this is aside from
because
Hadi and the Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
yes, because Jon Snow I think is officially
That one's
axed.
I think axed.
Right, and then
I would not mind seeing something about like the fall of Valyria,
yeah,
or the initial conquest. I think would be kind of interesting to see how the Targaryens actually come into power.
I've heard one of the rumored ones is the conquest. I'm only more hesitant on that one because I feel like I could use a bit of a Targaryen break after
That's kind
after
of
Hot
why,
D.
yeah, that's kind of why I was interested in like a Jon Snow show because I'm like, okay, what is the fallout for this clusterfuck?
Yes,
But
I would.
if they're not gonna follow, then
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I've also. I mean, people have been asking for a Robert Rebellion one for
Hmm.
ages. I feel like that one, even if it might not be the one that we should have, I feel like that one just kind of like writes itself where it'll be
Yeah.
inevitable one day.
Yeah. I do feel like when comparing, so you're comparing like Game of Thrones to Star Wars,
Yeah,
right? With Star Wars, you're always like, why does this fucking world feel so small?
yeah,
Where you have the vastness of space.
right.
And I kind of want to make the same argument with this, with Game of Thrones, where I'm like, show me something new. But I'm like, it's the world where like it is relatively not ginormous.
It's relatively not ginormous, and I think like there's also only so much that
You can do in a
George,
fantasy
yeah, that George has also written.
that, but I think at a certain point, like you can almost do like the Star Wars thing where you let other people kind of pitch in.
Yeah,
Because like I don't think good old Georgie boy is doing a lot of writing these days.
no, other than his blog,
So like
but it's
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 the Harry Potter issue.
it's the Harry Potter issue. But there's so the advantage that Star Wars had, even though like the EU was of very mixed variety and quality, people were allowed to initially experiment in expanding the universe in book form,
Hmm.
which just gives you that much more creative freedom that when you get to the point where you're adapting for the screen, you have nuggets that you can like pick and choose to
Yeah.
run with. But anyway,
Anyway,
yes.
before we go, did you were we on our little break when the news came out or the rumor came out that there were apparently rumblings that they wanted to buy the rights to Harry Potter away from Rowling?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
I'm I'm hoping they do.
I'm hoping they do as well for many
For
reasons.
many reasons, especially because clearly needs the money to get rid of that fucking mold in her house. Anyway, with that in mind, thank you all for joining us. Like I said, we will be back hopefully with more Game of Thrones adjacent content. Hopefully not too far
Yeah,
in the future.
yeah.
But until next time, he has been
He
Dono.
has been Javier.
This has been the Cine-Scoots podcast.
Bye.
Bye.